Isaiah, that can be easily done, or maybe it can be in my mind. It looked like it happened. That's nothing for it to look like it went 10 degrees forward. I can what is it called? I can concoct that in my own brain to believe it. He said, but something that is impossible to do, make time go backwards.
Right.
So that's what the Lord. That's what he asked of the Lord. Verse 11.
And Isaiah the prophet cried unto the Lord, and he brought the shadow 10 degrees backward, by which he had gone down in the dial of Ahaz.
So that's what the Lord did for him. He said, so that's what you want, so it shall be. Read.
At that time, Baladan, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present unto Hezekiah, for he had heard that Hezekiah had been sick.
So the whole purpose of us reading even this far back is because now we're going to see how even this prophecy came to be. So it said that the king of Babylon, Baladan, the son of Baladan, the king of Babylon, so it was the prince, because his father was a king. So one of the princes of Babylon sent a letter and a present to Hezekiah, like, yo, I heard you was sick, heard you was feeling down. I'm going to send some of my men over there to get, to give you a present. Hopefully you feel better, right? Or, well, actually, it was kind of like more so a parting gift, because they knew that this was like an irreversible sickness that he had. Right. 13.
And Hezekiah hearkened unto them, and showed them all the house of his precious things, the silver, the gold, the spices, and the precious ointment, and all the house of his armor, and all that was found in his treasures. There was nothing in his house, nor in all his dominion, that Hezekiah showed them not. Then came Isaiah the prophet unto King Hezekiah, and said unto him, what said these men? And from whence come they unto thee? And Hezekiah said, they are come from a far country, even from Babylon.
So Isaiah came and he said, hey, Hezekiah, where they from? Right. He said, oh, these are some Babylonians. The prince over there in Babylon, he brought me some gifts and he brought me a letter, because he heard that I was down and I was pretty much, I was about to kick the bucket. And he said, did we get there yet? Read verse 15.
Verse 15. And he said, what have they seen in thy house?
So Isaiah's like, so I see that they all in the palace. What did you show them? Read.
And Hezekiah answered, all the things that are in my house have they seen. There is nothing among my treasures that I have not showed them.
So Hezekiah, like, I had to flex on them a little bit. You know what I mean? He showed them the gold. I showed them the brass. I showed them the armory. I showed them all of the chambers of my wives. I showed them everything, right? I didn't hide nothing from them. I had to stunt one time, right? Show them how we do it in Israel. Right. Read.
And Isaiah said unto Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord.
And Isaiah said, Most High got something to tell you. Read.
Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house, and that which thy fathers have laid up in the store until this day, shall be carried into Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. And of thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away. And they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon.
So Isaiah said, damn it, Hezekiah. Well, Most High just told me to let you know that everything that you showed them, ain't gonna be here no more. Babylon's gonna come, overpower Israel, besiege them, take everything from you guys. Then he's going to make, the princes, those that were your heirs to the throne, they're going to be eunuchs. They're going to be turned to eunuchs. Let me see if does he tell them?
About the eunuchs?
No. Okay, he didn't go into it yet. But basically, he's like, y'all about to go into captivity under the Babylonians. And this was Hezekiah's response, verse 19.
Then said Hezekiah unto Isaiah, good is the word of the Lord which thou hast spoken.
Uh-huh.
And he said, it is not good if peace and truth be in my days.
Read.
And the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and all his might, and how he made a pool and a conduit, conduit, and brought water into the city, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah?
Mm-hmm.
And Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and Manasseh his son regained in his stead.
So Hezekiah, he passed away. As they say, slept with his fathers. Manasseh came and reigned right behind him. So Hezekiah, when Isaiah told him this, Hezekiah was like, well, if the Lord said it, then let it be so. He said, but does it have to be in my time? That's what he was like. That was the one thing, like, can it not be when I do it? Because he said, then said Hezekiah unto Isaiah, good is the word of the Lord which thou hast spoken. And he said, is it not good if peace and truth be in my days? So he said, but can we just not have this go on while I'm here? Can it continue to be peaceful, please? Then he passed away, and his son reigned in his stead. And so we see this was the prophecy. The Most High told Isaiah to let him know, y'all gonna go into captivity to the Babylonians. Now we're going to pretty much see the fulfillment, or how it actually came into fruition under his son Manasseh, right? Let's start at verse 1, 21 and 1.
Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 55 years in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
And his mother's name was Hephzibah.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, after the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel.
So his son was wicked as hell. He came out, and he was the polar opposite of what Hezekiah was and what he was trying to establish. And now we're going to get into even a little more detail, the things that he did. It said he committed abominations that the nations prior to Israel being there got kicked out for, because when we read in Deuteronomy, it tells you, these nations did all of these abominable acts. When you read in, I think, Leviticus, where it talks about fornication, when you read in Leviticus 11 about the dietary laws, when you read and it says, thou shalt not do after the Egyptians and do this, this, and that, because the nation that's before you right now that I'm going to kick out of the land did all of this foolishness, all of this wickedness. It said Manasseh went back to all of that. So in the eyes of the Lord, he was just full-blown pure wicked. But let's see in detail what it was that he was doing. Verse 3.
Verse 3. For he built up again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And he reared up altars for Baal, and made a grove, as did Ahab, king of Israel, and worshipped all the host of heaven and served them.
So he brought them back into idolatry. Read.
And he built altars in the house of the Lord, of which the Lord said, in Jerusalem will I put my name.
And he even said, to hell with the Most High. He said, we're going to start putting we're going to put Chemosh in the holiest of holies. We're going to put the altar to sacrifice to Ishtar and all of these other gods. It didn't even, at this point, this man was just flat out disrespectful and blasphemous, right? Read.
And he built altars for all the hosts of heaven in the two courts of the house of the Lord. And he made his son pass through the fire, and observed times, and used enchantments, and dealt with familiar spirits and wizards.
So he was sacrificing babies. He was into witchcraft and wizardry. He was consulting with those that try to talk to the dead. All of that wickedness that the Lord told us we ain't even supposed to be doing. That's completely contrary to the law. Things that he's literally doing, all the things that people would get put to death for. And he's just like, this is how this is what we gonna do, right? Read. Verse 7.
7, right? And he set a graven image of the grove that he had made in the house, of which the Lord said to David and to Solomon his son, in this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all tribes of Israel, will I put my name forever. Mm-hmm. Neither will I make the feet of Israel move any more out of the land which I gave their fathers, only if they will observe to do according to all that I've commanded them.
So he stuck a whole idol in the house of the Lord. Was that verse 9? No, it's verse 8, right?
8.
Verse 9.
Verse 9. but they hearkened not. And Manasseh seduced them to do more evil than did the nations whom the Lord destroyed before the children of Israel.
So not only were we doing wickedly, read that again.
God. And Manasseh seduced them to do more evil than
We did more wickedly than what the other nations was doing. So when you read in I think it's in Hosea, where it talks about, Israel, the 10 tribes, the northern kingdom, Most High said, leave them alone. They wicked as hell. They into idols and all of this. It said, but Judah, y'all all right. Y'all still doing what y'all need to do. We got up under Manasseh, and Manasseh said, hey, we gonna worship this guy, we gonna worship that guy, we gonna get into this, we gonna get into witchcraft. It said not only was we doing wicked, it said the heathen that got kicked out of the land at that time, when we first came into the land, they was more righteous than what we was doing right here, right now. We did more wicked than the heathen. Read.
And the Lord spake by his servants, the prophets, saying, because Manasseh, king of Judah, hath done these abominations, and have done wickedly above all that the Amorites did, which were before him, and hath made Judah also to sin with his idols. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, God of Israel, behold, I am bringing such evil upon Jerusalem and Judah, that whosoever heareth of it, both his ears shall tingle.
He said, I'm gonna hit them with something so bad. I'm going to bring such, such unfortunate, as people say, putting a hex or whatever you want to call it. He said, I'm going to put them in such a horrible predicament. When people hear about it, they're like, damn. Ooh.
Right, God.
For real? That happened? Jesus. They said it's going to make their ears tingle when you tell them about it. They're like, damn, for real?
God.
Read.
All right, and I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria and the plummet of the house of Ahab.
He said, I'm going to do them like I did Samaria. Read.
And I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipeth a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down.
He said, and I'm going to wipe the land clean. He said, I'm going to, like, you know how, like, when you have a dish, when you have a plate and you scrubbing it and you wiping it off to make sure everything's off of it? He said, that's exactly what I'm going to do to Israel. This land is going to be completely desolate of them. Right? Read.
And I will forsake the remnant of my inheritance and deliver them into the hand of their enemies. And they shall become a prey and a spoil to all their enemies.
So he said, I will forsake the remnant of mine inheritance. Who was the remnant? The southern kingdom. Because the northern kingdom had already gotten kicked out and went into captivity with the Assyrians. But the southern kingdom was doing what they were supposed to do. He said, man, for the most part, y'all still on, but y'all ain't doing, y'all ain't committing idolatry, none of that wickedness. Y'all good. He said, I'm about to forsake the rest of y'all asses. He said, because y'all just, not only are y'all wicked, y'all went further than the heathen.
Yeah.
He said, I'm done with y'all. Read.
Because they have done that which was evil in my sight, and have provoked me to anger since the day their fathers came forth out of Egypt, even till this day.
He said, y'all been doing this since the beginning. He said, when y'all first came out of Egypt, what was one of the first things y'all did when Moses went up to the mountain? Wanted idols. He said, y'all provoked me again. I done looked out for y'all so many times. You did it again. He said, so you know what? Cool. I'm done with you. Verse 16.
Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much, till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another. Beside his sin, wherewith he made Judah to sin, and doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord.
So he said, on top of that, all of the innocent blood that Manasseh was shedding, whether it was spiritually, because he was literally killing people through idolatry, or literally where he was literally killing people and shedding innocent blood. He said, Manasseh, he was wicked as hell. This man was wicked. Let's drop to 18.
Verse 18, and Manasseh slept with his fathers and was buried in the garden of his own house, in the garden of Uzzah, and Amon, his son, reigned in his stead.
So now Manasseh's dead, and now we're at Amon. Amon is his son. Let's drop down to verse 20.
Verse 20.
I'm sorry, read 18 through 20.
And Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Mishulemeth, the daughter of Harzaph
Haruz of Jabba.
Jabba.
Uh-huh.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord.
So this was the type of king that Amon was. Read.
And his father Manasseh did. And he walked in all the way that his father walked in, and served the idols that his father served, and worshipped them.
Drop down to 26.
Verse 26. And he was buried in this sculpture in the garden of Uzzah, and Josiah his son reigned in his stead.
So Manasseh was wicked as hell. Amon was just as wicked. We didn't even have to read all of what he did, because bottom line is he was wicked. So then he dies, and now we get to Josiah, one of the kings that tried to get everything back on track. Let's read 22, and we're going to read 1 through 5.
All right. Verse 1. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jedidah, the daughter of Ediah of Boskath. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, and walked in all the way of David his father, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. And it came to pass in the 18th year of King Josiah that the king sent Shaphan, the son of Azaliah, the son of Meshullam, the scribe, to the house of the Lord, saying, Go up, Hilkiah and the high priest, that he may sum the silver which is brought into the house of the Lord, which the keepers of the door have gathered of the people.
So he said, hey, Shaphan, go down here to Hilkiah and give him, basically pay him or give him the money for this particular service, right? Read, what do we have, verse 5?
Verse 5.
Read verse 5.
And let them deliver it into the hand of the doers of the work that have the oversight of the house of the Lord, and let them give it into the doers of the work which is in the house of the Lord, to repair the breaches of the house.
So, real quick, Kanaz, turn us down just a little bit. We're getting feedback. So, verse 5, he said, well, first he said, gather up all of the silver, basically get all of the money, go to Hilkiah, and pay him, because there were individuals, says, and let them deliver it in the hand of the doers of the work that have the oversight of the house of the Lord, and let him give it to the doers let him give it to the doers of the work which is in the house of the Lord, to repair the breaches of the house. So these were people pretty much doing quote unquote construction. He said, I need you to pay these construction workers. They gotta fix up the house, or they have to fix up the house of the Lord, the temple, right? Let's drop down to verse 8 and let's see what ends up happening. Because Shaphan has now gone over to the temple. He's meeting up with Hilkiah. Verse 8, let's continue to read.
And Hilkiah the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of the Lord. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan, and he read it.
So now Hilkiah was like, hey, when Shaphan came, he came to pay him. And Hilkiah was like, hey, I found the book of the Lord. Now remember, his father had reigned, he reigned 2 years, but Manasseh had reigned 50 years. So 50, let me double check, because I don't want to give you the wrong, 55 years. So we had almost 60 years of just flat out wickedness. We wasn't in the scriptures, we wasn't abiding by the law, none of that mattered. So Hilkiah, being one of the priests, and Josiah trying to set everything back in order, Hilkiah's like, hey, I found the book of the Lord. Like, we ain't used this joint in, man, what, 70 years? And so he gives it to Shaphan, and Shaphan read it. And it says in Shaphan, read verse 9.
Verse 9, and Shaphan the scribe came to the king, and brought the king word again, and said, Thy servants have gathered the money that was found in the house, and have delivered it into the hand of them that do the work, that they have oversight of the house of the Lord.
So he said, so we gathered all the money, we went and gave it to Hilkiah so they could pay the construction workers. He said, but, read verse 10.
And Shaphan the scribe showed the king, saying, Hilkiah the priest had delivered me a book, and Shaphan read it before the king.
So Shaphan was like, but Hilkiah gave me this book though, and you might want to look at this. Read.
And it came to pass, when the king had heard the words of the book of the law, that he rent his clothes. And the king commanded Hilkiah the priest and Ahikam the son of Shaphan and Akbor the son of Micaiah and Shaphan the scribe and Asahiah a servant of the king, saying, Go ye, inquire of the Lord for me and for the people and for all Judah concerning the words of this book that is found.
Mm-hmm.
For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened unto the word of this book, to do according unto all that which is written concerning us.
So Shaphan read the book to Josiah, and Josiah was like, damn, we've been doing everything wrong. Said he rent his clothes, and then he said, go inquire of the Lord for me and for the people and for all of Judah concerning the words of this book. So he said, go talk to the prophets and tell us, what do we do? Because clearly we've been doing wrong. He said, for great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened. So he said, clearly we doing wrong as hell. So Josiah was the one trying to kind of get things back in order. But again, we're going to see the whole point in reading this. Let's read 14.
14. So Hilkiah the priest. All right, come on. So Hilkiah the priest and Ahikam and Akbor and Shaphan and Asaiah went unto Hodah and
the
prophetess, the wife of Shalom, the son of Tikvah, the son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
Now she dwelt in Jerusalem in the college, and they communed with her.
So Josiah was like, yo, we done messed up real bad. He said, after what the hell you just read me, we been off. He said, you go inquire. We got to go talk to somebody who the Lord deals with. Because let's not get it twisted. Even in all of our captivities, there was always righteous individuals. You know, even when you read in the time of Isaiah, I think it was Isaiah where he said, Lord, or I'm sorry, it was Elisha or Elijah, I don't remember. But he was like, Lord, they've killed all of the prophets. And the Lord told him, don't you think I got some stashed away over here? Don't think you're the only one left. But we, through 62 or what was it, 50, excuse me, it was 55, 57, almost 60 years of wickedness. Of course, you had a few people that still were keeping the laws of the Most High, still stayed in tune with the Lord. So Josiah is sitting there like, yo, you need to go talk to who the Lord is dealing with right now. You need to go talk to the prophets, and we need to figure this out. So they went and they spoke to the prophetess Huldah, and she said, this is what the Lord told me. Read, what do we have, 15?
Yeah, come on.
15.
And she said unto them, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, tell the man that sent you to me, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will bring evil upon this place and upon the inhabitants thereof, even all the words of the book which the king of Judah hath read.
So he said, so Huldah said, look, you see what the scriptures say. It said that evil is going to come on Judah for the wickedness that they did. The Lord said that he's going to do that regardless, right? Read on.
Because they have forsaken me and have burned incense unto the other gods, they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Mm-hmm. Therefore, my wrath shall be kindled against this place and shall not be quenched.
So he said, hey, ain't nothing you can do right now that's going to satisfy me. I don't want no sacrifices. I don't want no incense. I don't want no prayers. Nothing is going to work right now. What I said I'm going to do because of what the hell Manasseh did, right? And then what Amon did behind him. But Josiah, now watch this. The Most High was merciful to Josiah. Verse 18, read on.
But to the king of Judah, which sent you to inquire of the Lord, thus shall ye say to him, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, as touching the words which thou hast heard.
So he said, But let the king tell those men to tell that they can relay this message to their king. Considering what you're trying to do and you coming to inquire, read.
Because thine heart was tender, and thou hast humbled thyself before the Lord, when thou heardest what I spake against this place and against the inhabitants thereof, that they shall become a desolation and a curse, and have rent thy clothes and wept before me. I also have heard thee, said the Lord.
So he said, because you was trying to be righteous, Josiah, because it really touched your heart and you really want to follow me and do righteous. Verse 20.
Behold, therefore, I will gather thee unto thy fathers, and thou shalt be gathered into thy grave in peace, and thine eyes shall not see all the evil which I will bring upon this place. And they brought the king word again.
That's so cold. Most High said, look, you know, everybody let it bring that scripture out. I am Yahweh, I change not. Most High said, I'm not changing my damn mind.
Right.
I'm not. Manasseh did what he did. Hezekiah was already warned by Isaiah, and I'm going to fulfill what I said I was going to do. But I like that kid, that Josiah. I like him. You know what I'm going to do for you because I like you so much? You not going to see it. You going to have peace while you reigning. You're going to be king, and you're going to live in peace. Y'all going to keep the laws, because everyone knows the story of Josiah. He threw the hardest Passover in the history of Passovers. He had the biggest function for Passover ever. Said, I like you, kid. Said, so I'm going to give you peace. Y'all going to keep the law. Y'all going to live in comfort and peace. Said, so, and you won't see what's going to happen, but it's still going to happen. Let's drop down to 2 Kings 23. Verse 31.
Verse 31.
So all of chapter 23 is pretty much talking about Josiah. He was trying to get everything in order. They got everything together to keep the feast. They kept Passover. Then Josiah ends up actually dying in war when they were fighting Egypt and the Assyrians, right? Let's start at verse 31.
Verse 31. Joahaz was 20 and 3 years old when he began to reign.
So now Josiah's dead, his son is ruling. Read.
He began to reign. And he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father has done. And Pharaoh Nicole put him in the bands at Reblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to a tribute of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold.
Read.
And the Pharaoh Nicole made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king, in the room of Josiah his father, and turned his name to Joachim, and took Joahaz away, and he came to Egypt and died there. And Joachim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land, of everyone according to his taxation, to give it unto Pharaoh Nicole.
So right now we are in not so much captivity, but we're giving tribute to Egypt right now. We kind of got bullied by Egypt, right? Verse 37.
Verse 37. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers have done.
So Josiah was righteous. He ruled righteously. He died in war. One of his sons, Jehoahaz, ended up ruling behind him. He ruled for, what did they say? He ruled 3 months in Jerusalem. And the Pharaoh of Egypt at the time was like, I don't like this dude. Let's go ahead and lock him up. Let's make his other son the ruler. And we're going to make them pay tribute. Right? 24 and 1.
Verse 1. In these days, Nebuchadnezzar,
Yep.
king of Babylon, came up, and Joachim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against them.
Uh-huh.
And the Lord sent against him bands of the Chaldees, and bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servant the prophet.
By his servant the prophet. When Isaiah spoke to Hezekiah, he said, I guarantee you, I promise you, I give you my word, Judah's going to go into captivity by the Babylonians. Then further down the road, we saw that it was because of the wickedness that Manasseh did. Josiah came behind him and was doing righteous, and the Most High said, I'm going to have mercy on you. I like you. You really want to worship me, so you're going to see peace. Right behind that, he had two wicked sons that ended up being tributaries to Pharaoh. And then now we're here where it says, in his days, which was Jehoiakim, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. So Israel kind of was, whenever Nebuchadnezzar needed something done, or he had a particular, a particular region where he was going down and taxing them and getting what he could get out of them, that's what we were at that time. And so Jehoiakim was like, man, we ain't gonna keep doing this. You ain't gonna keep coming down and just taking all of our stuff, right? And it says, so they went to war. But Babylon was in power at this time. They were coming up. When you read the history about Babylon, they were an empire. They were a force to be reckoned with at the time. And Israel, this little section right off of what they call Northeast Africa, trying to war with Babylon. So he said, I sent the Chaldeans, which was way on the other side of like Arabia, like just south of modern day Iraq. He said, I'm gonna send the Syrians, which was pretty much right up the street from us. I'm gonna send Ammon, which was right next door to us. He said, y'all about it, we don't fight fair, we don't take fair phase. Y'all finna get packed out. Right. Syria, go over there. Chaldees, go over there. Ammon, go over there. Put them in a place. Which he spake by the servants, the prophets. Verse 3.
Verse 3. Surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah, to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did.
Uh-huh.
And also for the innocent blood that he shed.
Uh-huh.
For he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which the Lord would not pardon.
So it said, y'all are not repenting from this. What Manasseh did is the reason why the hell Nebuchadnezzar's finna come in and ransack everything, besiege the land, and y'all gonna be slaves to them because of what Manasseh did, right? Verse 5.
Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah?
Uh-huh.
So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, the Jehoiakim, his son reigned in his stead.
Read.
And the king of Egypt came not again any more out of his land. For the king of Babylon had taken from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates, and all that pertained to the king of Egypt.
So Babylon was working his way up. Egypt had a little power. Nebuchadnezzar had to flex on him one time. It said, let's flip over, or let's drop down to, actually, no, we're going to continue to read on. But it said that, and the king of Egypt came not again anymore out of his land. So he said, hey, Pharaoh, I understand, you run things over there, but this is a takeover. You step out of that land again, and you try to touch Israel, you try to touch Syria, you try to come over here on my side, any area of the Fertile Crescent or Mesopotamia, if you try to come to Arabia, you better stay in Egypt. You better hang out in Cairo, because if you come out, we're going to have problems. So it said he came not out no more. It said, for the king of Babylon had taken the river Egypt unto the river Euphrates. It said he took over everything, right? Verse 8.
Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. And his mother's name was Nahashta, the daughter of Elathan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to...
So, Jehoiakim, wicked as hell too. Read.
At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and the city was besieged.
So, they already pulled up on us once. Verse 2 through verse 4, when we decided we wanted to try to fight back, who was that? Nebuchadnezzar, Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim tried to fight back, and we got packed out by the Assyrians, the Ammonites, and the Chaldees. And it said, this is just prophecy, right? Now they done jumped on us a second time. It says, and at that time the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against Jerusalem, and we got besieged, right? Read.
And Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came against the city, and his servants did besiege it. And Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, and he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers, and the king of Babylon took him in the 8th year of his reign.
So he done came through, and he done took pretty much all of the prestigious individuals in Israel at the time. He took the king, he took his mama, he took his officers, he took some of the princes. Read on.
And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon, king of Israel, had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said.
So this, remember when Isaiah told Hezekiah, everything in your house, everything in the temple, the Babylonians going to come and take over. This second time that they pulled up on us, they went in and they took everything out the house of the Lord. Read.
And he carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of the Lord, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained save the poorest sort of the people of the land.
So he said he took everybody. He took the lawyers. He took the blacksmiths.
Right.
He took the goldsmiths. He took the bronzesmiths. He took the construction worker. Anybody that had some value in that land, he took them. On top of the fact that he took all of the prestigious individuals, all the princes, all the captains, the king himself, his royal family. Everybody was gone except the bottom of the barrel. He said, y'all could stay here. Read.
And he carried away Jehoiakim to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
And all the men of might, even 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths 1,000, all that were strong and apt for war, even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
And the king of Babylon made Mattaniah, his father's brother, king in the stead, and changed his name to Zedekiah.
So Zedekiah was Jehoiakim's uncle. So he said, Jehoiakim, you out of here. You coming with me. He said, you though, what's your name? My name's Mattathiah. He said, okay, your name is Zedekiah now.
God.
You running what's left of here. Read.
Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done.
So just like his brother Jehoiakim, he was wicked as hell too. So we just got a line of wickedness right now. Verse 20.
For through the anger of the Lord it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah, until he had cast them out from his presence, that Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon.
So then it said, Nebuchadnezzar put him in power, and Zedekiah was like, shh, we ain't finna be tributaries to them. And now he's going against them, right? Let's read verse 1. Continue on.
And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, and he and all his hosts against Jerusalem, and pitched against it. And they built forts against around about. And the city was besieged until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. And on the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine prevailed in the city, and there was no bread for the people of the land.
So we was over there trying to fight with Nebuchadnezzar. It says, and it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day, that Nebuchadnezzar, decided he's about to pitch outside of Jerusalem. Oh, y'all want to fight? Oh, y'all don't want to listen. Oh, little nigga, you got heart.
Right.
Oh, you got heart now, huh? I got something for you. He locked down all of Jerusalem. He said, anybody try to come in here and trade with him, you're going to die. He all of his men pitched in front of the gate of Jerusalem. Ain't nobody coming in. Ain't nobody going out. And he pretty much just starved them out, right? And on the 9th day of the 14th month, of the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine prevailed in the city, and there was no bread. So at this point, we starving. Verse 4.
And the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between two walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldees were against the city round about, and the king went the way toward the plain. And the army of the Chaldees pursued after the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho. And all his army were scattered from him. So they took the king and brought him unto the king of Babylon to Riblah, and they gave judgment upon him.
So they finally caught the king of Judah or Jerusalem at the time. And he was like, oh, you was the one that was telling them to rebel against us, right? We could have did this the easy way. I don't know how many people watched The Walking Dead, but what's his name? Negan. He was pretty much telling everybody. He was like, look, all of y'all is Negan. We're all Nebuchadnezzar. Don't fight it. Listen, this is for the greater good. This is for your own good. This is for your best interest. And what did Rick and them want to do? To hell with that. We fighting. Getting people killed. His own son, because had they not been going to war, his son wouldn't have been in his predicament. He died. Glenn dead. People are just dying because nobody want to. We are Negan. You need to listen. So they besieged Jerusalem. Many of people had to die. They starved to death. Some of the men tried to flee through this little cut that they had behind the king's palace, and they said, "Oh, the soldiers, Nebuchadnezzar's soldiers, they was back there too." So they chased them. They said, "Oh, is that Zedekiah? Hey, Zedekiah running with him." They go and chase him. The army said, "To hell with this." They broke apart. They said, "We gone," and they said they caught Zedekiah. They took him back to the king of Babylon. He said, "Hey, you know you fucked up, right? Hey, you know you fucked up." God. Read.
And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes.
And he killed all his sons. Read.
And put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon. And in the 15th month, in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem.
So, this is the second time that they had taken over us already, right? This is when they captured Zedekiah. They said they killed all of his sons.
Right. After
they killed all of his sons, they poked his eyes out like how they did Samson. So, well, not them, but you know how in the scriptures it speaks on Samson. So now he's blind, and then they put the fetters on him. So then they chained him up, and then walked him into servitude into Babylon. Like, oh, I don't think we ain't gonna kill you. Come on, we ain't gonna kill you. Come on now. So we gonna work you. We gonna bring you in, let you suffer. You thought you had some heart. Read on.
And verse 9, and he burnt the house of the Lord and the king's house and all the houses of Jerusalem.
Real quick. And it said in the 5th month on the 7th day of Nebuchadnezzar's, 19th year, of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, it said Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, which was pretty much his captain, he said, now after Zedekiah done got his family or his sons killed and he's in captivity, it said later on down the line, they hit us a 3rd time. So it said Nebuzaradan, which was the captain of Nebuchadnezzar at the time, or the Babylonian army, said they went in there and they pretty much just destroyed what was left. Start that from the top. What was that, verse 8?
Verse 9.
Or verse 9. Read verse 9.
And he burnt the houses of the Lord, and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, and every great man's house burnt he with fire. And all the army of the Chaldees that were with the captain of the guard break down the walls of Jerusalem round about. Now the rest of the people that were left in the city, and the fugitives that fell away to the king of Babylon with the remnant of the multitude, did Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carry away.
Read.
But the captain of the guard left of the poor of the land to be vine dressers and husbandmen.
So we done been hit thrice at this point.
Right.
And let's go over to Jeremiah 29. So we got hit 3 times. First time was, I think it was Jehoiakim. Second time was Zedekiah. After that, they came back after they done already took all of the gold, took everything out the temple, took everything out of the Lord's house, took everything out of the king's house, out of everyone's house. They came back around and burned everything down. Tore up the whole land of Israel, or of Jerusalem at the time. It tore down the whole city. It said, but they left the poorest of the poor there because there was still agriculture there. You guys continue to keep this up. We'll be back to pick up our piece. You know, make sure them grapes is good. Make sure the wine is good. Make sure the barley is straight. Y'all keep this. It said they were doing all of the husbandry and agriculture at that time. Y'all make sure all of this stuff is right. And y'all be all right. Cool. Like, all right, good with me, right? And so let's see how long our captivity lasted. So we see the foretelling of it. We've seen the prophecy of it. We've seen the fulfillment, or it coming into fruition, and we've seen the reason why we went into the Babylonian captivity. How long was this supposed to be? Let's go to Jeremiah 29 and 10.
Oh, verse 10. For thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good word towards you, and causing you to return to this place.
Read.
For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, said the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Then shall ye come upon me, and ye shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you.
So verse 10, he said, for thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good toward you. He says, so y'all gonna be here for about 70 years. It said, for I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. So he said, these are my thoughts that I want for you in the end. But y'all gonna go through this trial, this captivity, because of the wickedness that you guys did. Verse 13.
Verse 13. And ye shall seek me and find me, when ye shall search for me with all your heart.
So he said, when y'all repent, because here's the thing, it ain't nothing new. The moment something bad happens, it's like, oh Lord, forgive us. Like, no, y'all don't mean it. Y'all just in one of them moments where it's like, oh damn, we know we can always call on the Lord and he gonna come save us. Most High said, nah, not this time. Not this time. He said, I want to give you guys prosperity. I want to show y'all love, but y'all gotta learn y'all lesson. Look at what y'all did. After Hezekiah, it was wickedness, wickedness, righteousness, wickedness, wickedness, wickedness. Y'all ain't learning y'all lesson. So, y'all got a couple of decades y'all gonna have to deal with this, right? Let's go to, Nash, we still at the PowerPoint, right?
No, it's on y'all right now.
Okay, take us to the PowerPoint. So now we're going to get into the times and the dates. And I'll read this because it's way over here. And this is from Encyclopedia Britannica. And it says, the Babylonian captivity, also called the Babylonian exile, the forced detention of the Jews in Babylonia following the latter's conquest of the kingdom of Judah in 598 to 597 and 587 to 586 BC. The captivity formally ended in 538 BCE when the Persian conqueror of Babylonia, Cyrus the Great, gave the Jews permission to return to Palestine. Historians agree that several deportations took place, as we read from, it was Jehoiakim to Zedekiah, or was it Jehoiakim to Zedekiah to the final, pretty much where they came back and burned everything down. So it was a number of deportations, right? It says when the Persian conquerors of Babylonia, Cyrus the Great gave permission. Here it is. Historians agree that several deportations took place, each result of uprising in Palestine. That not all Jews were forced to leave their homeland. That returning Jews left Babylonia at various times, and that some Jews chose to remain in Babylonia, thus constituting the first of numerous Jewish communities, quote-unquote Jewish communities, living permanently in the diaspora. So even when we were able to go back to our land, some people decided, nah, we're going to stay. And we'll read some more history on what the conditions were like when we were actually in captivity. So this is continuing on. Many scholars cite that 597 BCE as the date for the first deportation. For in that year, King Jehoiakim was deposed and apparently sent into exile. So around 597 BC is when they say the first time that we were invaded. Apparently sent into exile with his family, his court, and thousands of workers. Others said that the first deportation followed the destruction of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar in 586. If so, the Jews were held in Babylonian captivity for 48 years, but the scripture says 70, so we'll continue on and we'll see. Among those who accept the tradition in Jeremiah 29 and 10, the exile lasted 70 years. Some choose the dates 608 to 538. So around 590, anywhere between 608 and 597, somewhere around there is when the very first deportation or the first act of exiling Israel had happened. And it says others, 586 to about 516, the year when they rebuilt the temple and the year when the rebuilt temple was dedicated to Jerusalem. Although the Jews suffered greatly and faced powerful cultural pressures in a foreign land, they maintained their national spirit and religious identity. Elders supervised the communities, and Ezekiel was one of several prophets who kept alive the hope of one day returning home. This was possibly also the period when synagogues were first established, for the Jews observed the Sabbath and religious holidays and practiced circumcision and substituted prayers for former ritual sacrifices in the temple. So we were still able to practice, for the most part, our culture. And it said possibly, this is more so conjecture, they're assuming that synagogues had started, churches had started to become established around this time, because we weren't allowed to actually go to the temple. We couldn't go to Israel to the temple at the time. We got kicked out. The temple wasn't rebuilt yet until the very end, around the time of the Persians, which was around it was rededicated around 516 BC, so it was pretty much done, being created around that time. But during the rest of it, when we couldn't sacrifice because we didn't have a temple and the Levites weren't there to do anything, we were sending up prayers. We were still doing circumcision. We were still trying to keep the laws, keeping the Sabbath and keep the laws. They said more than likely this was around the time they started creating the different churches. Now this is from the New World Encyclopedia. Same thing. We're talking about the timeline, approximately when we went into captivity. It says the Babylonian exile is distinguished from the earlier exile of citizens of the northern kingdom of Israel to Assyria around 722 BC. So it's saying there is a distinguishment. There's a difference between them. It says the exile in Babylon, which directly affected mainly those of the upper class of society, because we know that the king, the rulership line was of Judah, and that was pretty much the southern kingdom, Judah and Benjamin. So it said it affected all of the royalty. So that was the difference, because northern kingdom, though we had, upper class northern kingdom individuals, the money, or the money was in Judah. The southern kingdom was the royal line. It says the exile in Babylon, which directly affected mainly those of upper class of the upper class of society occurred in 3 waves from 597 to 581. Some say it happened around 607, 608, somewhere around there as well. As a result of the Judean rebellion against the Babylonian rule. So this was when Jehoiakim had, or was it Jehoiakim? I don't recall, but basically we were trying to, we thought we had heart, and we was trying to fight against the Babylonians. And it said this was why. Of course, we also know it's because of the idolatry. The Lord had already put it out there. Y'all gonna go into captivity. The Bible portrays the internal cause of the captivity as the sins of Judah in failing to rid herself of idolatry and refusing to heed prophetic warnings not to rebel against Babylon. While the Jews in Babylon did not suffer greatly in physical sense, so we weren't like how we talk about the Egyptian captivity and how we were really in hard bondage. Just said we didn't suffer physically in the Babylonian captivity. While the Jews in Babylon did not suffer greatly in a physical sense, the siege and later sack of Jerusalem in 586, including the destruction of the temple, the sacred temple, left many of the exiles deeply repentant and determined to keep their faith pure. So we had already gotten the forewarning, and we were still like, we're going to do what we're going to do. I mean, you know, it is what it is. If it happens, it happens. Then they saw, after they destroyed the temple, burnt down the city, brought us into captivity, they didn't work us like they did in Egypt, but the fact that they saw the destruction of the temple, the Most High's house, they was like, I would have never. It was one of those things where if you ever looked at something and or looked at like if you had a close friend that was, you know, close in your age, like I'm in my mid-20s, if one of my close friends died, I'm like, I would have never thought in 1,000 years that would have happened. And it makes you like recalibrate life. So the same thing with the temple. I would have never thought it was going to be destroyed. This was the Lord's house. How could the Lord let this happen? So we was in a place of like, damn, we really need to repent and get it right. So in a physical sense, we weren't worked to death when we're looking at the conditions in which we were in that time. But they all agree it was about late 6th century, almost early 7th century, which was about 610, or excuse me, it was early 6th century, late 7th century. So around 609, between 609 BC to about 597 BC is when we first began to go into captivity. So the first exile was around 605 BC, approximately. The second exile was approximately 597 BC. And the final one, where the temple was destroyed and everything else, was 586 BC. Now we're going to get something out of, so we can see the timeline as well, the Rose In and Out Bible Map Atlas. And as we can see, let me see if I can grab the pointer. 1 second. Boom. Okay, so we see up here, it says 600 BC. So 600 BC all the way to 700 BC would be considered 7th century BC. So around the end of the 7th century BC, which is around 605, 606, something like that. Actually, I believe it says here, 605, is when people, or when a lot of historians and scholars say that's when we first got attacked. We first started going to captivity to Babylon. Then it was 597 that we got hit the second time. Then the third time was around 586 BC. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the conditions. As we just read in the New World Encyclopedia, it said we weren't physically worked, we weren't physically afflicted too bad. It says the Jews in Babylon did not suffer greatly in a physical sense. So it, from what we read, and even in the scriptures, it never really goes into detail on how the conditions were, how good or bad the conditions were. But we do see a couple of instances where we can see that we weren't treated too horrible. You look at Daniel, you look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It wasn't too bad, right? So the conditions under the Babylonian captivity. And this is from the Jewish Encyclopedia. It says, in consequence of the favorable external circumstances of the exiles, and particularly of such of them as were engaged in diversified commerce in the Babylonian metropolis, the longing for home gradually disappeared. So it said one of the consequences of the fact that it wasn't too bad there, it says we didn't really care to go back to Israel. We didn't care to go back home. It said, and they learned to content themselves with material prosperity. So we was doing it kind of like how we do in America right now. You got a lot of Israelites that are locked in, and we believe we got to get right. We got to get back to the Most High. A lot of our people's like, I got my G-Wagon. I got my Wraith. I got my Maserati. I'm good. I got my Mazzy. I'm living good. Shoot, I live in Baldwin Hills. I live in Beverly. I gotta make 6 figures. I'm Gucci. What you talking about? It says they learn to be content with material prosperity. It says most of these indifferent persons were lost to their people, for in their anxiety to retain the wealth they had acquired, they learned to conform to the manners and customs of the country, thus sacrificing not only their national, but also their religious independence and individuality. So it said they were so worried about, I got to make this money, I got to get this bread, I got to make it happen. It said they forgot where they came from. It says they sacrificed not only their national independence, independence meaning I'm an Israelite, I ain't no damn American. It said, call me what you want, it don't even matter. It said they sacrificed their national independence and they sacrificed their religious independence and individuality. So even their practices, keeping the Sabbath, keeping the dietary laws, all of these things, they were so focused on getting money, they're like, all of that take a back seat. Thus sacrificing not only their national, but also their religious independence and individuality, hence the denunciation by the prophets of various forms of idolatry practiced amongst the people. So all of the people was already in idolatry. They didn't give a damn. I don't give a damn about none of that. Okay, Nebuchadnezzar, you say you want us to bow down to him? Okay, cool, whatever. It ain't that bad. It is what it is. Kind of like, God is love. It don't matter what color Jesus is. All of that nonsense. We was like, it is what it is. Then you have the prophets who was like, I refuse. I don't give a damn what Nebuchadnezzar's talking about. I'm not doing that. It said we made a separation. It said we denounced. It became so normal to commit idolatry, and it's like it is what it is. It's so moot. It doesn't matter. Prophets said we denounced that. You got us bent. We worship the Most High, and that's it. It says, hence the denunciation by the prophets of the various mentioned in the prophet, in the various forms of idolatry practiced amongst the people, even if the description of idolatry mentioned in the prophet Isaiah's writing belongs pre-exilic times. So it said, even if this was before they actually went into captivity, when we read in Isaiah about all the idolatry and everything we did, it said, even if that's referring to prior to us going into Babylonian captivity, it says many other passages so graphically describe the idolatrous practices of the exiles that the relation between these and the Babylonian cult cannot be mistaken. So it said even, Isaiah was talking about we were committing idolatry, or we would commit idolatry. Even if that was prior to us going into Babylon, we still see a lot of other scriptures where we was committing idolatry in Babylon. And it was just normal to our people. But it said that we had favorable external or carnal circumstances. We was financially cool. We was out there getting to the money. We was straight. We was getting it how we could, getting it how we lived. It was all about prosperity. It was all that prosperity doctrine. It was all about getting your money. Hey, you know what? I get it. You them Israelites, and y'all got to keep these days. But look, I got to make my money either way it goes. So we was locked into that mindset. So we weren't in conditions that were so just horrible, so unbearable. But we did fall away even further because we was like, we good. So this is continuing on. Despite all the indifference and impiety on the part of the masses, there was nevertheless an element that remained true to the service of the Most High. So it said, though the majority of the people was doing wicked, you had that faction, you had that section of individuals that said, to hell with that, we worshiping the Most High. These servants of Yahweh, who humbly submitted to his will, gathered about the few prophets who remained faithful to the Lord, but whose voice and influence were lost amid the general depravity, and who, in addition to the pain caused by base ingratitude and faithlessness toward the God of their fathers, were also compelled to endure the shafts of scorn and ridicule. Here's the thing. It says there was still a faithful few, but they didn't have no pull. They couldn't sway the people into being righteous again. It said instead, the people scorned them and ridiculed them. Y'all niggas too extreme. Y'all doing too much. I don't think God is even worried about all of that. Sound familiar?
Right.
Crazy, right? But it literally said because their faith had dwindled. They was worried about getting to the money. They was worried about making $1. That was their focus. Then it says, while some, though without obeying the prophet's exhortation, so now this is, again, it's going to sound very familiar. While some, without obeying the prophet's exhortation, listened to his words, either because they appreciated his eloquence or because they were entertained and pleased by the holy enthusiasm of the man of God. Others ridiculed this faith in the Lord and the fond hope of the devotees of Yahweh of a future salvation and a redemption from pagan captivity. So it said there was people that would sit there and listen to him. Like, damn, I feel you. Yeah, I get that. It said whether it was because he was so eloquent in his speech, I like the way he said that. I like the way he talking. I like the way that sound. Or they was just entertained, like this. He really going hard for the Lord. Hey, look at this thing. Look at him. Dad, look, that man got some zeal. So they did it for entertainment. Kind of like they do today. Cats would come to us all the time. Man, I feel what y'all say. That's crazy. Hey, that makes so much sense. But that's just for y'all. I mean, I completely agree, but it's just not for me.
Right.
Same thing, right? Indeed, in their delusion, they proceeded even to open hostility and oppression, and a reference to a species of excommunication, or at least an open declaration of ostracism, is contained in the above-mentioned passage. These sad experiences of all true Israelites tended to separate them more and more from their recreant brethren. Recreant meaning cowards. So it said, the more that they went hard, the further that the masses was like, them niggas is weird. We ain't dealing with them. Yeah, what's up with them Israelites? They over here bugging. Talking about we can't work on the Sabbath. What you talking about? WAP was a good song. Y'all over-righteous. Y'all just over-righteous. I love me some WAP. I got me a WAP. What you talking about? Same thing today. It ain't nothing new. So it says that the more that they went hard for the Lord, the more the masses was like, you niggas is weird. We ain't messing with y'all. Oh, you an Israelite? Oh, you one of them? Oh, so you do this and this and this and this, right? You one of them. But watch this. It says, these sad experiences of all true Israelites tended to separate them more and more from their cowardly brethren, recreant brothers. The more the pious exiles felt themselves repelled by their pagan environment and their disloyal fellow Israelites, the closer became the union among themselves and the stronger their allegiance to the prophets and the law. So there was a faithful few. And it said the more that people scorned them, ridiculed them, made fun of them, it said the more that they hated them, like, you niggas is cowards. Y'all some punks. It said, and the more that they grew their closer bond with one another, the closer the people in the truth grew a bond with each other and to the law and to the Lord. Because they said the way that they acted, you know what the scripture said that was going to happen? This got to be true. This makes sense. We doing the right thing. Let's continue to stay strong, right? So now we're going to go into the works of Josephus. It's up to you if you want to read it. It's a long read.
It's a long read.
It's a long read. I don't know if you want to stretch, how you want to do this. So we're going to go right here. So we're going to go to the works of Josephus. I'm going to start up here. The works of Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 10, Chapter 10. And we're going to start at number 1. Go ahead.
But now Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took some of the most noble of the Jews that were children, and the kinsmen of the Zedekiah their king, such as were remarkable for the beauty of their bodies and comeliness of their countenance, and delivered them into the hands of the tutors and to the improvement to be made by them.
Excuse me, real quick. Let's go to Daniel. Daniel chapter 1.
Daniel chapter 1. I got
Because we're going to bounce back and forth. Keep it on the PowerPoint, Nash. We're going to bounce back and forth between Josephus and Daniel, the book of Daniel. So read. Actually, you know what? Continue on, and excuse me. Go ahead, continue on in the Josephus, but hold on to that.
All right, Khan. He also made some of them to be eunuchs, which course he took also with those of other nations whom he had taken in the flower of their age.
So hold that. So we're seeing in Josephus, it says that Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, took some of the most notable of the Jews that were children and the kinsmen of Zedekiah the king. So the people of the southern kingdom, the individuals who were of the actual line, you know, the lineage, he said he took them people, and he said he took the ones that looked good, sounded a little smart, seemed like they had potential. It said, and he did that with all the other nations too, the kinsmen of all of the other nations that he conquered, right? So now I want to get Daniel real quick, 1 and 1. I'll read it. It says, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning in wisdom, cunning in knowledge and understanding, science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. Right? So now we're in a place where the Babylonian king's like, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity to get these other nations a number of things. Help build up the ones that are already royal, because, you know, you're going to need regents. You're going to need governors in certain lands. Let's train up these ones that got a bit. That little dude over there seemed like he's smart in the sciences. He seemed like he got a little wisdom over there. So he started taking the ones that seemed like they had the potential, and he said, I'm going to have tutors over you guys. It says, and the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So let's go ahead and pick up in the Josephus.
Which course he took also with those of other nations whom he had taken in the flower of their age, and afforded them their diet from his own table. And he had them instructed in the institutes of the country, and taught them learning of the Chaldeans, and they had now exercised themselves sufficiently in that wisdom which he had ordered they should apply themselves to. Now among these were 4 of the family of Zedekiah, of most excellent disposition, the one of whom was called Daniel, another was called Ananias, another Mishael, and the 4th Azarias.
So these are the Greek forms, because this was in the time of, this is the time of the Romans. So they're kind of like how you read Judah, and in the New Testament it says Judas. So
Right.
it's all the same people, right? Read on.
And the king of Babylon changed their names and commanded them that they should make use of their other names. Daniel he called
Balthazar.
Balthazar, Ananias, Shadrach, Mishael, Meshach, and Azarias, Abednego. These the king had in esteem, and continued to love, because of the very excellent temper they were, because of their application to learning and the progress they had made in wisdom.
So, real quick, same thing in the scriptures. It says, verse 7, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, For gave unto Daniel the name Belteshazzar, Hananiah, Shadrach, and to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. And Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. Did we read? Okay, so we didn't get there yet.
Yeah,
so now, it was, the beautiful thing about the scriptures is it's very concise. And so it was getting to the point. Now, when we read in Josephus, it gets in a little more detail. So it wasn't just Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel that the Lord saw favor on. That Nebuchadnezzar saw favor on. He saw it on some people in the other nations too. He said, hey, them cats over there of Ammon, they kind of smart. Let's grab them kids over there. Hey, them over there in Assyria, they seem like they know a little bit. So he grabbed a bunch of them, right? Let's continue to read on. Now Daniel and his kinsmen.
Now Daniel and his kinsmen had resolved to use the severe diet and to abstain from those kind of food which came from the king's table, and entirely to forbear to eat all of living creatures.
So, right here as well, it says, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore, he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So that was Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. So now we're getting into detail in the Josephus. So Daniel said, I don't want to eat meat. So just real quick, kind of a sidebar. All of them Israelites that say, you ain't a real man if you don't eat meat, or what type of nigga don't eat meat. Well, Daniel was one of them.
Right.
Daniel was vegan. He ate beans, he ate lentils, he ate what was called a pulse. And pulse is any seeded, any vegetable that was seeded. So he ate beans, lentils, and then it said he ate dates. So that was his protein was beans and lentils and what's that other thing? Quinoa, stuff like that. And then he had dates. So that was kind of a sidebar, but that just came in my head because I know a lot of Israel has they like to take shots at people who don't really eat meat. But continue on.
So he came to Ashpenaz, who was the eunuch to whom the care of them was committed, and desired him to take and spend what was bought for the king, but to give them pulse and dates for their food and anything else besides the flesh of the living creatures that he pleased, for their inclinations were to that sort of food, and that they despised the other.
So the king had, and we're going to drop down. So the king had basically said, I'm going to feed you guys a royal meal. You know, back in old times, everybody didn't eat meat every single day. That was a delicacy. So it was for the feast days mainly. But a king could eat meat every day because they had it like that. So he said, I'm going to feed y'all like I would eat. And he was feeding all of his what do you call them? His underlings. He was feeding them like that. He said all of his proteges that he was building up. He said, I want y'all to eat. I want y'all to look like royalty. Y'all kind of skinny. You know, when we sit up here as royalty and we flex, you know, we got a little belly, a little bigger. We got some meat on our bone. And so Daniel was like, I don't eat that. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was like, we don't eat that. So they went and they spoke to their tutor or the man that was over, and they said, hey, go get us some beans and some rice and some lentils and stuff like that. And he was like, but the king said that y'all need to eat this because y'all need to get big. If y'all only eating this, y'all gonna stay small. And he started to like worry because he's like, you know, I got love for you, Daniel. You a wise young man, and then I respect you and you're amazing, but this is my life. And so when you continue to read, we're going to drop down. Let me see. We're going to drop down. He replied that he was suspected, blah, 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 blah. Yet did they persuade Arioch. Drop down a little further. When it appeared that they were so far from becoming war. We're going to start at verse right here, 193. So he was like, man, this is my life. I could die. And I was like, man, don't worry about it. Just trust us. Trust us. We trust in the Lord. Just get the pulse and the dates for us, right? So start from where I told you, 190, the 193. Let me see if I can find it real quick, though. What was the first word?
Now when it appeared.
Now when it appeared? Expecting nation, I heard saw the meager. Oh, actually, it might be back here then. He replied to serve. They suspected the king of meager bodies. Did I? So we had read all of this already. Then we read this part. Committed, desired him to spend days for food. He replied, ready to serve them, but he suspected alteration of countenance because it could not be avoided. The body's especially while. Oh, it actually might be on the next one, fairly better. And thus, yeah, it should be on this page then. Yeah, here it is. Now, when it appeared. So, their tutor was like, man, I don't mind doing it, but if y'all eat this, y'all not going to get big like the king wants, and he's going to suspect that I'm not feeding y'all what he's telling me. And if I disobey him, that's my head. I'm dead. So let's go ahead and read.
Now, when it appeared that they were so far from becoming worse by the use of this food, that they grew plumper and fuller in body than the rest, insomuch that he thought those who fed on what came from the king's table seemed less plump and full.
So they was like, man, don't worry about it. And so he listened to Daniel and the three brothers, and he said, they was eating a vegan diet, and they was blowing up. They was bigger than everybody else. And he was like, damn, I don't know what the king feeding everybody else, but clearly it ain't got what y'all eating, so cool, whatever. Read on.
While those that were with Daniel looked as if they had lived in plenty and in all sorts of luxury, Arioch from that time securely took himself that the king sent every day from his supper according to custom to the children, but gave them forementioned diet.
So he said, I wasn't even worried at that point anymore. He said, the king said, take them this food. He said, okay, I'll take it to him. He was like, I'm not taking this shit. I'm going to go throw this away and go get them what they want. Read.
While they had their souls in some measure more pure and less burdened, and so fitter for learning, and had their bodies in better trim for hard labor, for they neither had the former oppressed and heavy with variety of meats.
So hold on. It says, where is it? Okay. While they had their souls in some measure more pure and less burdened, and so fitter for learning. It's so cold that we know that they were a lot more intelligent back then, but he said these people that were eating the meat, they were slowed down. It said they didn't even learn as well. They didn't learn as fast. It said it said the people that were Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel, their spirits weren't even as burdened. So they didn't even feel heavy. They weren't foggy. They were clear-headed. They had clarity. They were able to learn. It said they were fitter for learning. And it's crazy because just a quick gem, when you eat... Go ahead. A quick gem, those that eat a more veggie-based diet actually have that luxury. They're a lot clearer. There's less toxins in their body. They have more clarity in their mind. They retain information better because vegetables have more vitamins, nutrients, and a lot of them already have a lot of protein as far as legumes, nuts, beans. Those are all sources of protein as well, without all of the excess grease and the fat that clogs your arteries, which causes slow blood circulation. But let me not venture into that. But it was just, I forgot that it said this. This was amazing. So back to the PowerPoint, if we're not there, Kanash. It says, and so fitter learning, and had their bodies in better tune for hard labor. It says, and they had more. Matter of fact, Kanash, I need you to get on the mic really quick. In Ghana, when you guys went to visit Ghana, people didn't really eat a lot of meat out there, right?
Yeah, I was listening to a radio show when we was on our way back from this one village, and they was going into how a lot of the Ghanaians are not, well, of course they eat veggies and all that other stuff, but there was really a shortage of meat. So they really had no choice but to eat, and they're used to that. So
yeah, but now my second question: how strong was those people out there who barely ate meat?
Oh, they got drive, man. They wake up 5, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they up to like 10, 11, and do the same thing every day, and strong as hell. You don't see no big people out there. You barely see big people out there. They're real lean, and their portions out there is more veggies and more veggies, rice, and all that. And the portion of meat is real small. So.
And that's if they eat meat. So that's
Exactly.
that's just crazy. Like you even read it right here. But let me again, this is not a health class. Let me not venture off too far. For they neither had the former oppressed and heavy with variety of meats, nor were they other effeminate on the same account. So they readily understood all the learnings that was among the Hebrews and among the Chaldeans, as especially did Daniel, who being already sufficiently skillful in wisdom, was very busy about the interpretation of dreams, and God manifested himself to him. So Daniel was already wise in a mug, excuse me. And the Most High, and with everything that he was getting in the time of the Babylonians, said he just continued to shine, he continued to grow, he continued to excel. So we see here in the scriptures, like even as far as when you read through the scriptures, it doesn't really touch on how good or bad the captivity was. But we see in certain instances, in certain areas, when our people were in captivity, they deal with certain of the individuals. And so it said that they were pretty much treated, they wasn't treated half bad. They was all right. You know, we even saw in the one article that our people were so focused on getting money. It wasn't like they was out there being physically oppressed, physically drained and worked rigorously like we were in Egypt. It was nothing like that. But we wasn't worried about the Most High. We was worried about getting this money. So it shows you we weren't treated just horribly. And then from there, Daniel chapter 5, and it states Daniel chapter 6. No, 5 and verse 23. So this is after Nebuchadnezzar had passed away, and now his son is in rule. It says, we'll start at Daniel chapter 5 and verse... We'll start at verse 22. And thou, his son, O Belshazzar, hast not humbled thine heart, though thou knewest all this, but hast lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords and thy wives and thy concubines have drunk wine in them, and thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold and brass, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, but the God in whose hand thy breath is, whose are all thy ways, hast thou not glorified. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the writing that was written. Mene, tekel, upharsim. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God has numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balance and art found wanting. Peres, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. So it was prophesied or told that now the Persians and the Medes were now going to rule. Babylon would fall. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold about his neck and made him a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So that was the end of the Babylonian reign. So next week, what we're going to get into is actually the Medo-Persian Empire. So we can continue on with Darius and Cyrus the Great and what went on in that time, how we were able to rebuild the temple, what was captivity like in that timeline, and all that good stuff as well. But with that, so that was pretty much it. The prophecy of Israel going into captivity under Hezekiah, going going into the actual reason, it actually coming into fruition, and then the timeline, the time frame, and the conditions that we were under there. So most high willing, it was educational, it was informative, it was entertaining. And with that, we're going to go ahead and say shalom, send them up to the Most High. You guys have a blessed, I guess the new moon is over now. Well, there's no more new moon, but I pray that you guys had an amazing Sabbath, an amazing feast day, and we'll definitely catch you guys next week. So with that, we'll say